1340 96.5 KVGC. On the phone with me, Douglas Viviani of Everything Old is New Again. Tonight at 6 o'clock, tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, he and David Cohen sit back each week, examine our pop culture, where it came from, why it's still popular, and definitely make radio fun again. And Douglas, I know I kind of invoked a childhood memory in a lot of folk this past week. Jim Rooney and I posted a picture of two boys with their Schwinn Stingrays. We said they were us. They weren't. That was actually a sales manual for the Schwinn Stingray. And you were one of the folks that, boy, that's hard to say, Schwinn Stingray. And you were one of the people, many people that said, yeah, you had one. You had one. I think everybody did, don't you?
I didn't want to show off because the one that was shown was just a regular one-speed Schwinn. I have to brag, my brother and I had, this is now 19, I'm going to say 70. We had the Schwinn Fastback 3-speed, which with the banana seat, if anybody remembers these, and that bicycle was the best present I ever received. It was the best ride. We used to ride around the neighborhood all the time with that. That was our mode of transportation. We lived in a little community where, there was no danger riding around anywhere, so we, no big streets, it was sort of in an incove, or if you want to call it that. And we would just, we loved that. And everybody in the neighborhood had different bicycles, but that was the gold standard to us. The Schwinn Fastback. We used to go in the farmer's field, we called it, before they built a mall around the corner from us, and ride up and down the hills and pass round and round. I mean, it was the greatest. It brought back such memories. I don't know. Did you actually own one?
Oh yeah.
See? Okay. So you just weren't in the picture, but you certainly owned one.
No, that was actually because we were talking about Schwinn Stingrays, and I said, hey, I'm going to go find a picture here. Actually, the first one was, what do you think they cost? That's what our first, what our parents paid? Well, the regular Schwinn Stingray, okay, was $49.95, okay? The 3-speed was $59.95. So for $10 more, you got the 3-speed. But, think about it. There was the ones with the sissy bars. Remember when they had the extended forks? After a while, you could get the extended forks on them. And mine was green with a white banana seat, and I eventually saved money, and I bought a black with silver speckled seat and changed my seat out, and that's what I had. That was
and then the Y handlebars, right? And some kids would get the big Y handlebars and lean back on their bicycle, almost like one of those motorcycles back in the day.
Yeah, like a chopper. Yeah.
And the we had a stick shift on the in between your legs there, so to speak. That that bar there, it's legitimately a stick shift that you would change gears. And I mean, that was the greatest. I actually went on eBay previously, a couple of years ago, looking for to purchase one for my son, just to for him to have as a bicycle, as opposed to the apparently kind of generic ones they have now, and they could go for $700, $1,200 in that range, depending upon the shape right now.
We saw some just regular, because when we first started to look up the price, if you just go price of Schwinn Stingray, it'll pop up like on eBay, and they were in the $500-$600. Just the plain, the plain old, Stingray without the
right
3-speed or apparently they have a 5-speed too. That
missed me. Maybe that was like later on. They must have advanced it, a little bit.
But think about that, Douglas.
But what was your neighborhood? Did everybody in the neighborhood just have a bike?
Yeah, and think about it. I looked at that post on Facebook, and there were people from all walks of life. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I have friends on Facebook that, it's a very eclectic group of people. It'd be nice to get them all in one room at one time and have a cocktail party, and but everybody, that picture invoked a reaction in so many people. it was kind of heartwarming, to be honest with you, because I think everybody had one. Everybody can remember. Do you remember just riding around, maybe you and your brothers and your friends in your neighborhood, and being gone for hours and hours at a time, and your parents not really know where you were? But
it was the greatest time ever. And we even, like, as far as the bicycles, just one sentence on that is that I used to remember who had what bicycle in the neighborhood. Some kids had a Ross. I don't know if you had that brand by you. That was the competing brand of Schwinn. And you knew who was at someone's house. You'd go call for someone, they would say. You'd get on your bike, you'd ride to someone's house, and you'd see someone else's bicycle in front of the house as well. You go, "Oh, Lenny Oli is here. Good. let me go in. The gang's starting to pile up at Douglas Blom's house or whatever." I mean, you were gone for 8 hours, and you'd ride that bicycle all over the place and play sports and put your baseball mitt on the handlebars. You maybe put some baseball cards in the spokes.
Yeah.
And maybe you get a license plate with your name on it behind your seat. You know, a bell maybe or something like that. You'd spice it up a little bit. I mean, the girls would put streamers on by the where you would hold, the handlebars.
Handlebars.
Your hands.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the great. I don't know that kids do that now. Once in a while, in my neighborhood, I see a dad going around with his daughter and son, riding the bike here and there, and that's about it. I don't see any gangs of bicycle riders riding around. I wish there was. I
do too. I really do. It was a great time, and it was kind of heartwarming. It felt good for me to have posted that picture that started as a joke, but to see so many people actually react to it and know that there's a whole, we were all one generation. I worry about that today. Are the kids of one generation, or are they so splintered into subgroups here and there? We were all one back in the 60s and 70s, and the Schwinns.
It's true. I mentioned it before, play cards once a month with people from the guys I grew up with from the same neighborhood that rode the bikes. And if I showed them that picture, and I will show it to them next time I play, there'll be an hour-and-a-half conversation on bicycles and which ones and who had what. And there was the one kid in the neighborhood that was always the one that claimed they could fix bicycles, and they had, a couple of bicycles apart on their driveway on Saturdays, taking the wheels off and the chains and all this, and trying to fix bicycles. And I mean, there's a story around all of it, and we built a camaraderie. It built a friendship that I don't know. I'm not going to pick on kids these days because there are limitations. They're not allowed to go out 6 hours on a Saturday on their own and make up their own fun. But I think a result of that possibly is a negative, because all they're doing is pushing buttons on a video game on a Saturday instead, or waiting for mom and dad to set up some kind of a organized activity for them. You know what I mean?
Well, look at the last kid that went out and ran into some trouble in his neighborhood, and he ended up living with his uncle and auntie in Bel Air. That's the last time that happened. So,
the Fresh Prince, he did all right for himself, I'll tell you. Speaking about that, what about? Have you heard this? Listen, I love Everything Old is New Again, of course, but sometimes I think we take it too far. Is there a need for a reboot of 90210, the TV series?
Wait a second. Are you just throwing that out as a question, or is this actually?
I'm throwing it out there because guess what? There's a reboot in the works with all the same actors from the original show, except unfortunately, it looks like Luke Perry just had a massive heart attack or a stroke a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know about him, but the rest of the gang is signed up to do 90210, the reboot.
Have you seen Tori Spelling lately?
She was on that singer show. What do you call it? The Masked Singer.
Yeah.
And as opposed to Ian Ziering, who's been on Dancing with the Stars and Sharknado, who's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
In shape and everything. She kind of looked a little bit worse for wear,
Let's just say gone under the knife one too many times.
Yes.
How's that sound?
It's one of those faces or smiles that when they talk, it's almost like their mouth doesn't even move.
Like the Joker.
Exactly.
Think about it. Shannon, I haven't seen any photos of Shannon Doherty at all.
Unfortunately, I think she struggled with cancer for a while. She's just come out of it pretty good. So there's word that she's the only one actually that hasn't signed up for the reboot of this thing. But I don't know if they're calling it a reboot, but whatever it might be. But she has left the door open to sign up for it.
Can I give you my vote?
She looks pretty good, but she lost the hair and all that from the cancer treatment.
Can I give you my vote?
I guess that might be beyond us. Is that something that you used to watch?
I never watched it.
Yeah.
I never watched it.
Do you know anybody that did?
No.
Yeah. So
no, honestly, I mean, there probably are. I would say they were probably closeted 90210 fans. I don't. Well, see, when was this show out? 80s?
I'm going to say that was the late
80s?
80s to mid 90s. It's on for 10 years.
So I'm in my 30s, 40s, and I'm moving on, got kids, doing stuff. So I'm probably not paying attention. No, I did not watch it. I did not watch it at all.
It inspired the Melrose Place, which was on right after that. That became a pretty big hit. It was on, was it on the CB or one of these? It was on one of these. I think it was.
Was it on Fox? It might have been one of the original Fox.
Yes, that's what it was. It was on one of these series that was, stations were just starting out at the time, and he was sort of like, I don't know about this. What am I going to do with this? Just about, there was cable, but there wasn't all this plethora of stations.
Do you remember when? Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it now. Johnny Depp was on it. What's his name? DeLuise was on it. They made a movie of it. It was about teenage cops.
Yes.
What was the name?
I had the name of it.
Everybody in the audience is screaming at us the name of it right now.
21 Jump Street.
21 Jump Street.
Yeah.
That was that was on that was on Fox too. Was that like one
actually
of the Fox?
It'd be a pretty good show to look back and see the original lineup. Let's say for the first 2 years of shows that were on Fox. There was also the Gary Shandling show, I remember.
I loved that show.
Now, remember, this is the original one, not the one where he was the Johnny Carson character. One before that. Do you remember that one?
Oh yeah.
Well, it was called This Is the Gary Shandling Show.
Yeah.
That was really good, right?
Yeah. I'm serious. I liked it.
I did too. That was.
And didn't Chris Elliott have a show and his dad was on? He's. I always forget if he's Bob or Ray's son, but he was, and his dad and mom were on the show actually too.
Yeah, Bob Elliott was on it. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
That was a good show.
Well, I should look back. I'm going to have to look back and pull up old ratings or old reviews. I bet you they all will ring a bell one way or the other as to fledgling network just starting out, brand new shows. Married with Children was another one.
That was big.
Yeah. So they did have a pretty decent lineup.
You know what I watched in reruns last night, and it was I watched the very first episode, and I didn't see it in the first run because I didn't get into Modern Family until about the fourth or fifth show of the first season, and I've only seen the first show. Maybe this might have been my third time to see it. I'd forgotten a lot about it, and man. Ed O'Neill, Jay sure looked young. It looked a lot younger than he did. It was just 11 years later now, but the whole show, just the difference in the show, and that show I think has stayed true to itself. Don't you?
I think it has. It's been pretty good. It's got to be tough coming up with. I only think they do like 22 a season now, though, something like that.
I'll tell you what show I hope stays true to itself is the Orville. Have you? Yes. Did you watch the two-parter and everything?
This is the thing. Yes, I did watch the two-parter. It just ended last week, or this week, I should say, and it was pretty good. I'm not going to complain at all, but my thought is the original premise of this show, I thought, was going to be more or less on the comedic side, and now they've hired a lot of Star Trek people, Brendan Braga and Jonathan Frakes is directing. There's a lot of ex-Star Trek people on the behind the scenes. And John Cassar, who is from 24. He was one of the big directors of 24. He's an executive producer. So they've got some real good, solid names of TV producers and executive producers behind this show, and directors. And it looks like they're getting away from the comedy side of it and basically turning into Next Generation 2, which I'm not going to complain about, but I'm wondering if you're noticing less comedy in there or less lightheartedness, or was it just that two-part episode? I don't know.
I don't think so, because I said this from the very start, and if you go back through the archives and find our first visit when we talk about the show, I say to you, Douglas, I was pleasantly surprised. I think I quote me, I was pleasantly surprised. I thought this was going to be Family Guy in space, and it's not.
Right.
And that's what I like about it. It's not Family Guy in space. There were still some quips here and there, but hey, they were under. But on the other hand, though, didn't you keep thinking, oh, the Borg is attacking Earth? Yes. Didn't that keep coming back in your mind?
Yes, and they went back and they got themselves
have I seen this?
a Klingon type of neighboring civilization. And so it is very similar, and it's all over the internet that it's very similar, and not in a bad way, to Next Generation.
You know what? When you're out in space, there's only so much you can do. You know what I mean?
Well, the only thing is that ship is way too roomy. I mean, if you really had a spaceship, would there be that much room? And you walk in the hallways, you see these people walking in the hallways, there's nobody around. Take a look at our spaceship or our space station now. Go on the internet, look at how tight and cramped the quarters are. Would we really build a ship that was that big with so much room to just kind of hang around?
Okay, remember the old show Enterprise with the guy that was in
Scott Bakula.
Scott Bakula. Okay, that's what the ships would look like.
I agree.
That's what the ships
It
would
wouldn't
look
be
like.
like if you look at these military vessels, the submarines, even the high-tech submarines now, or go back and look at some footage and see submarines and battleships and all. There's very little posh, chairs to sit in with great big cushions and rugs and all of this,
But
so that's
still,
real sci-fi. But I think it reminds me, it's a little bit of its Next Generation and Galaxy Quest, which I thought was really fun. I didn't see that movie.
Yeah.
So I think he was trying to catch a little more of the Galaxy Quest type of feel, and I think he's got it. I mean, it's definitely a hit. It's his second season. It's getting some great ratings, and so people are enjoying it. And the people that are talking about it are all Star Trek fans too, saying they're getting a kick out of it. I don't know if it's bringing any new fans in. Be nice if it did. I'm not sure, but along those lines, have you seen any? I know you have to pay for it.
No.
Of the Discovery, the Star Trek Discovery.
No.
It's I don't know. There's a lot of people don't like change, so there's a lot of mixed reviews online. But it was just reviewed for a third season now. This year they've got Captain Pike. If you're a Star Trek fan, he's the original captain from the pilot, and he came over and he's been on the ship, and they're searching for Mr. Spock, and it's been a really cool ride, and I think it's finding its stride. And the problem is with these CBS shows is that there's only like 10, 12 episodes per season. So how do you really get your legs? How do you really get people into it? And on top of that, how do the actors really build that chemistry when it's only 10 or 12 every season? But I'll go beyond that and say I think it's a really good show. And on top of that, now the CBS All Access, they're coming out with in April a Twilight Zone.
Before we get to that Twilight Zone,
Yeah.
and we're running out of time here.
Yep.
Is Lost in Space coming back?
It sure is. They're just now wrapping up the filming for
Production.
the entire second season. I don't know when it's coming out. I'm going to guess May or June. And you know what? That's Netflix. What they do is they drop all the shows at once.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a delay. Is they film it all, but they got to edit it and all this stuff of all 10 or 12 shows. And then one day, all of a sudden, all of them are on Netflix all at once.
So back to Twilight Zone. Do you have Rod Serling as a guest this week? Or
I wish we did. We do have him in some ways, because we have a gentleman that I met at the Geek Convention, and we did a show on this, in Long Island, and he's written a tome. He's written like a 570 8-page book, which is a page-turner. It's a great book about Rod Serling himself, called Rod Serling, His Life, Work, and Imagination. And the gentleman's name is Nicholas Parisi, and he is as much a nut about Twilight Zone as the both of us. And he had the ability to take 4 years and go to the archives of Rod Serling's hometown and then of a couple of colleges which he donated things to, and he did a lot on tape recording, and there's a lot of behind-the-scenes writings that and tape recordings of interviews and courses in college that Rod Serling was involved with. So if you want to know anything about Rod Serling, including, you've got to remember Night Gallery and Requiem for a Heavyweight, and he also wrote Planet of the Apes, and many people don't know that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he wrote the Planet of the Apes, or much of it. They revamped some of what he wrote, but he was the original author of the screenplay of the book Planet of the Apes. So tune in, because we're going to have 2 weeks with Nicholas Parisi talking all things Rod Serling, and he's a fascinating guy. If you don't know him, you certainly know the Twilight Zone. We talk a lot about Twilight Zone. We talk about a lot of other things and what he was all about, and writing and so forth. It's going to be a lot of fun for the next 2 weeks.
All right, tonight at 6 o'clock, tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, Douglas Viviani, David Cohen, Everything Old is New Again. Douglas, we'll be listening.
Sounds good.
All right.